I want to go to the last one before we lose any time, the mind part, because
Yeah.
I think oftentimes people don't realize the impact of our thoughts.
Ooh, well said. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, mic drop. I don't know. Where do we begin? This is a huge part
Right.
of whenever I work with a person. I'd say it's the make or break of whether a person actually sees their health dreams come through or not. From my experience, it all starts with people taking a few days and just watching how they talk to themselves, watching what kind of questions they ask themselves, watching what happens when they screw up and how they treat themselves. All these things are very much connected. And then, on top of that, how do people treat themselves?
You're listening to Cold Press Conversations with Dr. Jewel White Williams, a lover of numbers, lists, and a good glass of cold press juice, who is sharing episodes each week to help you explore the back end of healthcare and health sciences. Where a lot of that grit is done, we'll dive into topics covering research, education, and clinical practices, as well as guest shows with other leaders in the field. Pull up a seat and let's dive into these amazing and game-changing conversations. Hello, I am Dr. Jewel, and I am elated, excited, thrilled to have Isabella Thor. She is coming to us from Canada. Am I right?
That's right, Eastern Canada.
You're my second Canadian. I'm elated. I'm
Ooh.
elated. I have Isabella Thor on here. I'm telling you, she has a wealth of experience where she is practicing as a functional nutritional therapy practitioner, dedicated to uncovering the roots of her clients' health issues, allowing them to return to their favorite activities with their loved ones. Since March 2022, she has been self employed in Canada, working one on one with clients to apply the principles of functional medicine. She holds a degree from Quest University and is specialized in holistic health through the Nutritional Therapy Association since May 2021. She works with two primary groups of clients: women experiencing menstrual issues and couples facing fertility challenges. Y'all heard me. She understands that no woman wants to endure several days of pain each month or rely on pain relieving drugs with potential long term side effects. Isabella's approach aims to ensure smooth and easy periods through nutritional therapy. Additionally, she supports couples dealing with fertility issues, helping them overcome obstacles and achieve their dream of starting a family. Through her personalized approach, Isabella empowers her clients to reclaim their health and well being. Y'all have to admit, this is exciting, is it not? Welcome, Isabella. I'm thrilled to have you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Jewel. It's lovely to be here, and your energy is infectious. I love it.
They always said when I was in the classroom, the kids were like bouncing. They were like, oh, this because of the teacher. She's just so excited. I love just being around people and
Mm,
just giving some insight. And this is amazing. I'm elated.
fantastic. I'm so glad. And I've talked to a lot of people about what I do, and one of the immediate reactions often is, um, like, what? That's possible? And like, tell me everything you know. And or like very, very skeptical. And I want you guys to know that all of this and what Dr. Jewel just read out to you is not for you just to believe. I mean, we just met, right? It's for you to experience because it's very real and it's very exciting. Functional medicine and nutrition is the bomb. I'm so glad I'm alive right now.
No, seriously, it
Mm,
really is. I mean,
mm,
I think a lot of people are trying to understand functional medicine. A lot of people are trying to understand integrative health, holistic methods, so they can become better. We know that the food industry has changed, our environment has changed. And so some of these factors do play a role in how our bodies react and how they accept various things. And we know that with pharmaceuticals that it does change the body chemistry. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you here today, because when we look holistically at the body, especially
mm.
the female, and we're talking about the cycle, we're talking about infertility, we're talking about a whole list of multiple things that are involved. We're talking about the holistic part of our brain, thyroid, talking about the endocrine system, we're talking about the reproductive system, and then our mental health and wellness plays a role in both of these as well. And so that's why I was
Mm.
elated to have you here. Give me a background as to why you decided to even pursue what you pursued.
Absolutely no problem. It's it's a very painful point in my life, but I absolutely love sharing it because it's so important for people to know this as well. And I came to this functional medicine, nutritional field through being on a completely different path, you guys. I was down the road of being like physics, philosophy, master's degree, and that sort of stuff. And then I became so suicidally depressed that I had to drop out and figure out what was going on. I made a suicide pact with myself, which means that I gave myself a certain amount of years to figure it out. And if I couldn't, then it'd be fine. I mean, there's no point, right? It was a really deep point of hopelessness. And you guys, what I discovered, it was incredible how little really I had to do to lift the sort of the fog. I hope you guys keep listening because everything we're about to talk about today, from hormones to nutrition to the mind body connection, everything will also help you lift any sort of depression you might have about the world. And I know that's very common these days, it's becoming more and more common.
It really is becoming more and more common.
So, you guys, just so you know, I was there. And if any of you guys are there too, just know that if you are occasionally depressed or seriously depressed, cyclically or constantly, just know that what you're seeing right now is not the fire of life. What you're seeing is just the smoke.
Mm.
I promise you. And I was there. I know what it feels like. So that's where I started. And I had to figure it
Wow.
out.
You said
And
not the fire of life is just smoke. Oh my gosh.
look,
That's powerful. Keep
look
on
at
going,
you.
Isabella.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I take notes all the time too. But yeah, I mean,
I know you see me over
it's
here.
look at you.
I gotta write it down. Sorry. Because it's
Yeah.
important. And at the end, I will give our suicide number so people can have a place where they can talk to
Yeah.
somebody or reach out to somebody. And for even health professionals, there are various hotlines they could call as well. But the
That's right.
positive thing from this is that you're stating that, like you stated, it's
Mm,
not the fire life, but it's the smoke. So it's
yeah.
not the thing that's going to burn us and make us feel like we can't make it anymore. But what you're doing is you're telling us it's there, but there
Yeah.
are avenues in which we can take to build us out of that. And that's the reason what brought you here because of functional medicine. And that's
Mm.
amazing. Thank you for sharing that. That's very transparent. And I thank you for even just sharing that.
My pleasure. And honestly, that is what led me here. I mean, what I discovered was not only how to just ridiculously easily lift my depression, and I really appreciate that you mentioned the hotlines and the resources people should know at least that are there, but
Right?
I I was a classic case of having the most loving family, the most loving relationships, most amazing school environment, and yet still within me there was this smoke and I couldn't see any hope or future. So everybody can experience this feeling, this really deep hopelessness, and sometimes doesn't matter who you talk to. That's what I'm saying.
Mm.
But I still want you guys to talk to somebody, of course. But perhaps
Yes.
also try this as well at the same time. Because I'm telling you guys, I had the best support system ever, but it wasn't enough for me. So until I got the nutrition right, because I realized I was malnourished. And back to the original question, how do I get all the way to helping women
Mm.
with periods and couples with infertility challenges and that sort of thing? I discovered I was malnourished chronically. And through that, I accidentally discovered that I could also have pain-free periods. And that had been something that's very normal for me as I was growing up, as I had my own period for the first time, the first through high school. I had the most easiest, smooth periods. I didn't know that there could be hellish periods out there. And I know you guys, many of you, you start out really
Mhm.
like down and really like you're among the cursed in terms of periods. And it's so
Yes.
sad, but I was lucky. I started out really smooth, and then as I went into university and beyond, my diet
Mhm.
became terrible. I went out of that system where I had some sort of deep nourishment in my life, and from there,
Mhm.
slowly, I had worse and worse periods, just becoming more cruel and cruel. And the thing is, at that point, when you have your first painful period and you ask around, like your friends and your women's circles and that sort of thing, none of them think that it's abnormal. Nobody is like, "Oh, weird." They're all like, "Oh, yeah? You didn't know that?" Like, "Here's the Advil," or like, "Here, take do this.
Yeah.
You need this and you'll get through. Don't worry, honey." Like, that's what you get. And so you think it's normal, and that's fine. But the thing is, it turns out it's not normal at all. And woman after woman that I've worked with has found the same thing. We just look at the same basic foundations. We look at nourishment, we look at detoxification, we look at the mind. All these three big foundations have all the other sub foundations in them for health. And these things, once you meet them, I love saying this thing to
Mhm.
my clients, especially because they need to hear this, and you guys probably need to hear this too. And that is, most likely, and I really mean this, most likely, it's not
Mhm.
an oversimplification. Most likely, your whole body is quite a perfect structure. It has all the perfect parts, every single thing you need. And the only thing that's quote unquote wrong is that it just doesn't have the resources to function. Think of it like a
Mm.
factory. You could have the most beautiful factory or any kind of system, and if you can't even fuel it, of course it's going to slowly from within break down one piece at a time. And like a cogwheel, if one piece starts to falter, then more pressure is put on other parts of the system. Think of it like a table. You cut away one part of a leg of a table. What does a table suddenly have? It has that rockiness, shakiness, and some of the legs will have to bear more burden all of a sudden. So I see this all the time, for example, when I have people with thyroid conditions, or infertility conditions, or trouble losing weight. The thing is, their hormonal systems are just overburdened most of the time and struggling on fumes to create what is needed, like the thyroid hormones, for example. And that is the big picture, and it's very exciting picture, I think. And I really mean this when I say that most of us really are perfectly formed, and the very, very special genetic conditions out there are like 0.00, very, very small number. And I have
Mhm.
yet to come across it personally in my practice, but I'm sure they exist. And of course, we see that people are born perhaps with some incomplete structures of some kind, but it's so, so
Mhm.
rare. So, you guys, just remember this: you guys are most likely not broken at all. It's just time to get you renourished.
That's incredible that you said that. So, what it sounds like is that you talk about the 7 foundations of health,
Mm.
where you're focusing on their wellness. And it's important to help the female or the woman achieve there's nothing wrong with them, that they're fine. So, I guess what I need to know is what exactly are those 7 foundations of health
Mm.
which you use to help guide the woman?
No problem. Yeah. So, fun little update.
Uh-huh.
I have now officially made it just, I talk about three now because all of
Oh, do
the
you?
foundations are,
Okay.
there's so many. And as I've practiced, I've found out that you really just need to hit on three, and everything else is contained within it. But yeah, let's
Okay.
talk about it. The
Yeah.
three that is most important for women that I work with are: first, nourishment; second,
Mhm.
detoxification support; and the third is a very widely named category called mind. And it is everything from your beliefs, your habit formation abilities. In detoxification, for example, I have things like sleep, your liver function, your hydration system. And in
Mm.
nourishment, these are just briefly overlooking what does it mean when I talk about these three. So in the nourishment side of things, I have vitamin, mineral, and macronutrients. If you don't know, macronutrients are everything you have on your plate: protein, carbs, fat. Micronutrients are vitamins and minerals. So I have macros, and macros make sure you have them from properly prepared, highly nourishing sources. And then we talk about fatty acid balance. And absolutely the most important thing to me is that whenever I start working with someone, especially when they're dealing with pain, I want them to know, first of all, when you are in pain, When
Mhm.
does society, including our medical professionals, ever consider that a normal part of your life? Unless it's a chronic condition. So, a typical lady who's still having her cycle these days, she'll be in a lot of pain for the first few days of her cycle, and she'll think that's normal. And she'll have that every single month for 30, 35 years ish. And
Yeah.
that, in any other textbook I've ever seen, is absolutely considered a chronic condition, and not at all a normal thing. So, pain is a signal from your body, you guys. And I
Mhm.
teach you guys how to read your bodies again and not ignore the signs that it's giving you. And not only pain is a language that your body talks to you with, but things like your mood is also how it speaks to you. Your cravings is how it speaks to you. And this is all very much how functional nutrition and medicine looks at the body. It's very holistic and everything's so connected with each other. And yeah, so that's where I want to begin. First of all, look around you. You are probably not deficient in non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs or any painkillers, over the counter painkillers. You're probably deficient in very basic macro and micronutrients that are very commonly low in today's population. So, specifically, let's talk about an example. So, vitamin D levels, for example, very, very low. Usually, I start there. Make sure that they have enough vitamin D levels circulating in their bloodstream again. Almost every system in your body uses vitamin D in some
Mhm.
way. It's so
Mhm.
essential to get enough from your diet, and not only the sun, but your diet in particular, that in the functional lens, we use it and we talk about it like a hormone. It's just that important. So that's where I like to start. You guys, if you aren't on any vitamin D3 in particular right now, it's very safe to start taking about 5,000 international units a day. And it doesn't have any counter indications with any medicines I've come across so far. It's a very safe thing, but of course, you may absolutely talk to your practitioner about it. But you guys, especially if you're dealing with any kind of hormonal pain, I mean, there aren't many conditions I haven't seen this help, but
Yeah.
specifically, we're talking about painful periods right now, and also are the reproductive ailments that we're seeing more and more of today, and mind ailments that we're seeing more and more today. So,
Yes.
if you increase your vitamin D3, I often see people lift that fog I talked about, that smoke,
Yeah.
within days. It's
Mhm.
so powerful. And that's
Wow.
just from you going into almost any natural supermarket, even a regular
Yeah.
supermarket, and you can pick this up. Again, it's 5,000 international units of vitamin D3, not D2. I've studied for a long enough to know that there's many differences between these numbers that you might come across. So we've done all the work for you. Go for the D3, not the D2. And it's the same thing for all the minerals that I recommend, or when I recommend people's basic other vitamins or minerals. They're very specific. And when it comes to man made supplements, I usually recommend that people get as much as they can from whole foods and high
Okay.
quality foods, because you have all these ratios of so many minerals and vitamins and macronutrients, and they come in such great proportions in a whole food, especially things like a whole animal food, still one of the most nutrient dense foods on our plates today. Just so you guys know, we're still on the nourishing
Yeah, I was gonna
part
say
of the
because 'cause we're still in
foundation.
nourishing.
Yeah.
So with your 3, yeah, you have the 3 foundations,
Yeah.
and you've given us a large amount of
Yeah.
information on just nourishing alone, that we need to keep in mind. And I think what's important is that one thing I do wanna pull out as our listeners are listening to this, that you brought out pain is not normal. And if it is, then that means there's something else. We already have the perfect body, but what's happening is something just isn't functioning appropriately. And nourishment is one of the key things. And the reason I bring that up is because
Mhm.
you stated that when you realized that the way you were feeling was not a mental issue, it was because you were chronically malnourished. And that's really important to hear because it sounds like you may have gone through your second step of detoxing.
Yes, I really like that point. Very, very smooth. She's good, guys. But yeah, absolutely. It goes almost without saying, but I think it's important to say the obvious because it's not necessarily obvious to people who don't spend years of their life in these things. But
Yeah,
the
yeah,
thing
yeah, yeah.
is, you most likely have a perfectly formed structure. And at most likely just doesn't have enough nutrients to get things moving like a beautiful
Mhm.
car, and you just don't give it any fuel and you expect it to do well. No way. Now,
Oh, excellent analogy.
right?
Excellent analogy.
Other than petroleum and these fantastic energy from macros and micros, the other thing that's so important, which is why it's the second foundation that I love talking about, is that you can't expect your system to function if it's stuffed full of leftover metabolites
Mm.
and detoxification leftovers that your body just hasn't been able to get rid of. My favorite analogy for this is imagine if you lived in an apartment or a home where you couldn't take out the trash for a whole year.
Ooh,
This is what it's
ooh.
like when you're not aware, number one, of where toxins come from in our modern day life and how prevalent they are, really. They really are everywhere, and you got to really keep your eyes open. And number two, if you don't naturally support your organ systems that are in charge of detoxification, that could look as simple as making sure you drink enough water. Like I mentioned,
Mm.
hydration is one important part of detoxification. So is sleep, by the way, because every night there's this liquid from your spine that comes into your brain and washes it and then goes back. And so every night you have a brain bath. Your body gives you a brain bath. And every single day your blood flows through your system. What is it, 5 liters a minute or something? And there's another system in your body that is called your lymphatic system. And that system doesn't
Oh,
have any muscles
yes.
to keep it pumping and moving. And by the way, guys, most of your detoxification systems go through that system. So, not your
Yeah.
blood really, but your lymph system. That's where a lot of your immune system is actually located. So, what do you have to do? You need to
Mm.
make sure that there's some sort of movement in your day naturally and consciously. Or you can do lymphatic
Mhm.
brushing, which is something I recommend to my more busy professionals.
Yeah, a lot of
Uh,
people are seeing that now,
yeah,
especially for some reason. I don't know why it's summertime that you see more of those videos that are on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. They talk about the brushing and the lymphatic system, and just sort of starting your day off and how you do it and the proper way to do it, where the direction you push.
that's right.
And it's pretty interesting to watch how people do this. I'm curious about this. Isabella, have you heard about a mini trampoline and how people are
Right.
like, get on that mini trampoline? And they're
Yeah.
like, that's helping move everything for you and get that lymphatic system going. And I'll never forget that was like a big face. So everybody was going out buying these mini trampolines and bouncing on them for a minute, you know?
Oh, I remember that,
And I'm
man.
like, clean the lymphatic system.
That's right.
But it's just a way in which to get the entire whole body moving. And I
Absolutely.
think that's important because,
Yeah,
as you stated, nourishment, detoxing, and how our system moves,
yeah,
and the lymphatic system is what takes in a lot of those
that's right.
toxins,
That's
and they
right.
must be eliminated.
Yeah.
I want to go to the last one before we lose any time, the mind part, because
Yeah.
I think oftentimes people don't realize the impact of our thoughts.
Ooh, well said. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, mic drop. I don't know. Where do we begin? This is a huge part of whenever I work with a person. I'd say it's the make or break of whether a person actually sees their health dreams come through or not. From my experience, it all starts with people taking a few days and just watching how they talk to themselves, watching what kind of questions they ask themselves, watching what happens when they screw up and how they treat themselves. All these things are very much connected. And then, on top of that, how do people treat themselves? This is very important to understanding how you treat yourself when it comes to developing good habits for life. So, if your relationship with yourself is shaky and quite tyrannical, honestly, is the right word for it, and not like a person who genuinely cares for yourself and genuinely cares that you have a good life, then when we talk about forming habits for life through this awesome automation system I teach people, where they do one thing for
Mhm.
90 days. And then, by the way, that becomes something called automatic. It means like it almost becomes a reflex in your system. If you can do something for around 90 days, you might have heard the saying that 28 days is what it takes to make a habit, but really that is actually not the case. That's maybe enough to start breaking a habit. But when they looked at a group of people, the average was actually between 180 days and, the month. And so in
Wow.
between is like the average for everyone. So it's about 90 days for most people to really start seeing an automatic habit come along. And so I teach people, okay, take one thing and use me as an accountability person. And let's just
Yeah.
make sure you do that every single day. And we keep track of it with this awesome checklist. And then at the top of the checklist, we have an identity statement. Who are you becoming by doing the following checklist? And it could be as simple as I'm going to drink this much water every day. At the top, I see beautiful things that people write. So we're talking about the mind component of recovery, and the identity statement is an important part of the moment my client realizes that it's not really about getting there to the goal. It's about who they're
Yes.
becoming while they're getting there. And that will keep you motivated. Getting to the there will not really get you motivated. It's knowing who you're
No.
becoming, putting it in writing, and having it at the top. People write, I'd be one of those people that does cartwheels with her grandkids when she's
Yeah.
80. And like,
Mhm.
that's the vision, and that's not a destination. It's the becoming. And um on top of that, I'd say just watch what you're asking yourself, because your mind is such a powerful tool. And I did not understand people when they talked about the mind component for a long time, until I really started working with people. And here's what I wished all these people had said. Your mind completely works for you. So if you feed it harmful questions, it will give you harmful answers. For example,
There you go. There you go. No, you nailed it right
yeah,
there.
for example,
The mind actually, no, 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 you really just nailed it right there,
yeah,
because it depends on your belief system.
yeah,
They say your tongue can be very powerful.
yeah,
It can breed life or death. And so the way
mm,
that we use our tongue is how we're thinking. And so that's super important. There was something else you just stated. You were talking about the mindset and how it can play a huge role into how one can function. And then it was the number of days. You said 90.
yes,
90 days,
90.
and it depends on the individual, and it can go up to
Mm,
180. So I'm just going to break this down for people.
great.
So she's talking about 3 months. Originally, people were talking about the 28-day cycle.
Yeah.
So we're talking about maybe like the month of February. However, we're talking about literally it takes 3 months to 6 months so that it becomes no longer a process that you're doing to learn, to correct, but to make it a habit.
Mm.
And so that's huge. That is huge. We know we have just a couple more minutes left, Isabella.
Oh
And
my.
I just want you to, yeah, I
That
know
was so
you and I have
fast.
just like, I've been like engrossed. You've been engrossed. I mean, we're really loving this part. And I really appreciate that you gave a lot of really neat nuggets. When we think about a situation, doesn't necessarily be the situation we were discussing earlier,
Yeah.
but a situation, it's not the fire of life, but the smoke. Y'all, I have to repeat
Mm.
that. I'm going to tell you, Isabella has given me something I've got to share, because that, it just spoke volumes. I was chronically malnourished. And that just played a huge role into everything that you're doing, how we're focusing on your three foundations. They went from 7 for functional, but to now to 3, dealing with nourishment, detox support, and the mind. And you explain, even though we were talking about the body collectively, with your certification and nutritional functions, understanding therapy itself and how it focuses on the functional medicine. I think you've helped a lot of us understand it from a more simpler way of understanding our body. So
Mm.
often we get so into those big terms, Isabella, don't
Oh
we?
yeah. And I love it.
But you
I
broke it
just I
down.
get
You broke it down.
I broke it down.
You broke it down. I'm going to call it the simplified method of functional medicine.
Oh, I love
Talk
it.
to Isabella.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Do you want to leave our viewers with one key thing
Yeah.
that they need to know about themselves? Because you have given so
Mm.
much. I can't even describe it. You've helped some people out there who really need help, and you've given them a place to know where to start, which is amazing. So,
Mm.
what would you like to say today to them?
Let's see. Ooh, one thing. She's really doing it to me now. uh, okay, one thing. Let me just say this. Back to the questions you ask yourself, because I really think that's important to leave people with. Why? You can either ask yourself a harmful question like, why is this always happening to me? Why am I never losing this weight, for example, is a really common one. Why am I in so much pain all the time? Okay, you ask yourself that, your mind will come up with the evidence for it. I promise you. So instead, ask a better questions. Ask yourself, how can I solve this in the easiest, smoothest way possible? Or in a different situations, what is this situation? What is this terrible person in front of me trying to actually gift me? If this person was a teacher, what is he or she trying to gift me in this moment, including the pain? So what is this trying to teach me instead? Is a very helpful reframe. And then your mind, which is a part of your body, by the way, we tend to forget that. Your brain is an organ. It
Yes,
will
yes.
answer. It will say, maybe this pain is actually not normal and maybe it's time to talk to someone about it. And here's where I really like leaving this conversation with
Yeah.
a completely free gift. And that is something I've put together only recently for International Menstruation Day, I believe a few months ago. And I put my whole process into 5 steps on how to relieve pain-free periods. And it's something I've worked on for so long with people, and it's part of my practice now. But I see a lot of other people now with fertility challenges, weight loss challenges, chronic conditions. So I just put this guide together. It's 5 steps on how to have pain-free periods. And it's everything we've talked
Wow.
about and more. And it has very specific recommendations of what I would recommend you take, including micronutrients, detoxification support. And you guys, a lot of it, I believe most of it is free. Like stuff you can do for free, and it really should get you there. If it doesn't get you there, then you know who to call, because I take those cases too. But
Wow.
to get that completely free resource, it will always be free. I believe it's on my website at isabellathor.com/painful periods. Very simple. So it's completely free. And I hope you guys share it, because I can't tell you how deeply I wish I had this information 10 years ago. I love what I do now, but I also loved what I was doing back then before I got depressed. I loved studying physics. I love studying philosophy. And you guys, I also want people to continue doing what they love, so that, especially women,
Yes.
we already have
Yes.
enough shit to deal
Yes.
with and stereotypes and all of that stuff. So, yeah, just take it and share it, because we're worth it, ladies. We're totally worth it. And ask yourself better questions, please.
Oh, thank you so, so much. Isabella, thank you. You have given so much information in regards to women's health, how we need to concentrate on what we eat, how we speak, and how we treat our bodies. And I thank you. That is so well worth it. If they didn't get anything else, may they have gotten the last few seconds where you mentioned how they can start, and I really appreciate it. I just want to say thank you very much to everyone who's tuned into Cold Press Conversations. Until next time, this is Dr. Jewel. I want you to take care of yourself. I want you to remember that when it comes to your health, remember it is about you. And I want you to remember that it is to your health, to your wellness, and definitely for cognitive happiness. Y'all take care. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Cold Press Conversations. If you love this episode as much as I did, I need you to head on over and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This is Dr. Jewel signing off to health and cognitive happiness.